So it just happened when it comes to Polkadot. What do I mean by this? Polkadot recently announced how it's official. The first Polkadot US ETF is now live on NASDAQ. Now, nothing I say is financial advice. However, I think this is actually a pretty big milestone, actually a wonderful milestone, which granted, people like to say, who cares about this? Well, let's take a look at ETFs and what they've done, for instance, in the case of some other projects out there. Take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF. I mean, it's done pretty good things historically, right? Of course, Bitcoin, Ethereum, it's kind of down relatively speaking when compared to moments in 2025. I'm totally aware of that. But we've seen, right, that historical, movement that it's done as a result of more institutional adoption. We also saw what happened after, the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, and so on. So I feel like this stuff right here could maybe have future implications for something like Polkadot. It may not showcase it as of right now in such a massive way because the sentiment still hasn't really been the best, and it's not even, I think, anywhere close to where we saw, back in early 2025 when it comes to altcoins. But still at the same time, though, I think this right here is a very impressive achievement. A lot of people thought, oh, no one's going to care about Polkadot, but supposedly, this happened, right? So I do find it to be pretty cool. Again, we take a look at the 21 shares Polkadot ETF. A lot of people probably thought, oh, it's never going to happen and all this. But again, apparently it just happened. And they even put it at the billboard, right, in New York City. So I do find this to be pretty awesome, actually, in the grand scheme of things. However, I'm not going to be putting a picture of that because, I don't own the picture. So if I did it, probably it's not a good thing. This is why, again, I just want to talk about it. But besides that point, though, if I take a look at DOT as of right now, which is, of course, Polkadot's native token, people like to say how, okay, it's still well below $2. Like, who cares? Well, I mean, yeah, in the past year alone, right? So in the past 365 days, basically, it's down around 62%, more or less. Let's just say for simplicity's sake, like 60%. Clearly not doing the best. But here's the thing, because the pullback has been so kind of, relatively speaking, extensive, right? If let's say for whatever reason, DOT, right, just went back to the price that it had back in September of 2025, which was around $4.50. And as of right now, we're around $1.50. So again, compared to where we were just back in September of last year, we're around 3 times lower than that, basically. Around 3 times. Bitcoin is not around 3 times lower than its all-time high, let alone around 3 times lower than where it was back in September of 2025. It's just not. I mean, okay, I'm not telling anyone to do anything. This is just personally my perspective, but I'm saying, if I just dollar cost average right now and DOT were to just go back to September of 2025 levels, it's already kind of going to sizzler for me. That's the way you take a look at it. I mean, does anyone think that December of 2024 and September of 2025 was an altcoin season? I don't think so. I mean, of course, altcoins were doing better back then, but that wasn't an altcoin season. So DOT has already proven, right? This has already showcased that even without an altcoin season, we've already seen $10. Even less than a year ago, we just saw like $4.50 back in September of 2025. Like, we've already seen that. That's the thing. If DOT never experiences a hypothetical altcoin season, let's say it never goes back to its all-time high, because if we take a look at DOT's all-time high, it's pretty impressive, right? I mean, back in 2021, price was around $55. Let's say it never goes back to that ever, for whatever reason. Let's say it never does that. Just $10, or let alone just $4.50, much like in September of 2025. Time for me to go to Sizzler. That's the way you take a look at it, even though I am not telling anyone to do anything. But again, that's just how much DOT has had a pullback. And DOT, right, achieved all that without this, right? Without the first ever Polkadot US ETF. It did that without. So what would happen if now this becomes more of a narrative and then we see a change in sentiment when it comes to altcoins? Could you imagine? Again, we just saw $10 not that long ago without the 21 shares Polkadot US ETF. We saw that. So what would happen now with this, right? Now also with Polkadot 2.0 being a bigger narrative as of right now than before, in my opinion. Also on top of that, we take a look at the aspects of elastic scaling when it comes to Polkadot. Not to mention, do you remember that not too long ago, when it comes to Polkadot, it made a post showcasing some changes that were going to be had, right? Because they say how on March 12th, they're going to be supposedly, having a reset when it comes to its economic model. They say how, for instance, the maximum supply is going to be capped at 2.1 billion DOT, so that gives a little bit more certainty, right, when it comes to Polkadot, in my opinion. Furthermore, they say emissions will be reduced by 53.6% immediately. That's what they say. I mean, they're planning this, right? Again, the reset for its economic model, they say on March 12th. So if we think about it, is Polkadot really quote-unquote cooked? I don't think about it that way. I mean, DOT is not the only thing that's having a pullback, right? A bunch of projects are. It's not only just DOT. That's the way you take a look at it. And keep in mind, even with a moment like this, DOT has over 1 million holders. So it's not like it's doing so bad, in my opinion, basically, in terms of that. And also in terms of fundamentals, it's still the most popular actually within its own niche. And I actually do believe that. I mean, if we think about it, Polkadot is a layer 0, right? What is another project that's kind of often compared to Polkadot? It's something called Cosmos. But Atom, which is Cosmos' native token, market cap is way smaller than DOT. Also, furthermore, sometimes when it comes to the space of interoperability, which if we take a look at interoperability in this case, it's basically focused on connecting blockchains together, like projects that are focused on that, right? Polkadot, I think, is just the most popular because sometimes people like to compare it to something like Axelar, but Axelar is way smaller than Polkadot. So really, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think Polkadot is cooked. If some people out there think that Cosmos is going to make it, if Axelar is going to make it, why can't this? It's way bigger and it's pretty much focused on the same things, more or less, than those projects. This is just kind of my mindset, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but this is just, again, the way you take a look at it. So yeah, I haven't given up when it comes to Polkadot. I'm still waiting. I'm still staying patient, but that's kind of all I can do actually as of right now. Do I have to believe in Polkadot? No. But I'm still dollar cost averaging once a month and that's it. I mean, again, I could easily give up when it comes to Polkadot, but I just don't want to do that. This is all I wanted to say when it comes to Polkadot. I just thought it was a very impressive achievement actually, but not many people talked about it. And I think the reason why is because, a lot of people thought that, oh, maybe Polkadot's cooked. But I don't think about it that way because keep in mind, Polkadot made this post not that long ago and there's like less than 1,000 likes. Like usually Polkadot, when they make a post that's not even of this magnitude, not even at this scale, if they didn't let's say a year ago, right? The amount of likes would be completely different. But again, the first supposed alleged ever Polkadot US ETF, they make a post on that, and even as of right now, the likes is still like under 1,000. That's kind of like ridiculous in a surprising way to me. It just showcases how much the sentiment has changed when it comes to Polkadot. But keep in mind, sentiments could change later. And if the sentiment were to change, sometimes people take a look back at stuff like this. So this is why I don't want to ignore Polkadot, especially as of right now, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. However, I am still dollar cost averaging once a month and that's it. Again, I am not telling anyone to do anything. However, I'll be sure to make more updated videos when it comes to Polkadot, so hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. It's Willie the Captain, and I want to say thank you for watching. I'm out. Peace. Bye.